Welcome to the Bayou City Eco Almanac. I'm Mark Kramer, Chief Naturalist at the Arman Bayou Nature Center.
And I'm Dr. Kathy Garland. I'm a lecturer in environmental management at the University of Houston at Clear Lake. What you're seeing today is a collaboration between our two organizations. And we're actually working with students here today to make this broadcast, which is designed to highlight some of the environmental treasures that exist in the Houston area.
And hopefully to enhance the eco-literacy of area residents. Today we're going to introduce you to the Arman Bayou Nature Center,
which truly is one of our local treasures. And I'm so excited to be able to be talking to you about it here today, Mark. So tell me a little bit about what Arman Bayou Nature Center is about. Why do we have it, and what does it do?
Well, it's really a step back in time, and when you visit Arman Bayou Nature Center, what you're visiting is part of Houston's ecological heritage. So when we visit the center, we have an opportunity to walk through the three dominant ecosystems of what the Houston area once was. That includes bayous, the Bayou City. It includes the forested areas that surround the bayou, and it includes also coastal tallgrass prairie.
So when we come out there and we see a bayou, what's the difference between a bayou and a creek? I mean, what are bayous? We talk about them a lot down here.
Well, they're very similar. You know, when you picture a stream in your mind, you picture kind of a meandering waterway that's flowing, headed down towards the ocean or a larger river. Bayous are very similar, however, they don't really flow. We describe bayous as being sluggish-moving water bodies. So unless we have a big rain event, a big flood, and a runoff event, typically bayou waters don't move very quickly. That's the big distinguishing feature.
You know, I was at a meeting just last night over in LaPorte, and one of the features they were talking about there in terms of flooding and managing floodwater during the big rains we just had was that people didn't understand that when the tide comes in, that actually reverses the flow in the bayou. And so people were kind of really freaking out because all of a sudden their floodwaters weren't flowing out anymore because the bayou was coming in.
Yeah, that's right. Another way we could think about a bayou is a tidal stream. So we put that word in front of it. That indicates the fact that bayous connect to Galveston Bay and the Gulf of Mexico. And there, of course, those waters rise and fall about 2 feet as the tide ebbs and flows every day. So as you're saying, bayou waters move in both directions. When the tide's coming in, it flows away from the ocean. When the tide's falling, it's falling back down towards Galveston Bay and the ocean, but very slowly, very gently, almost imperceptible when that tidal movement is taking place, unless you're looking very closely.
Now, I seem to remember that a couple of years ago when we had that really big drought here, people told me that they were actually finding jellyfish in Arman Bayou.
Yeah, that's right, and it turns out that bayous are also estuaries. We think about that as a concept. It means that they're a combination of rainwater and seawater. But in a drought, as you're suggesting, there's no freshwater inflow. There's no fresh water diluting the ocean water. That means salinities get saltier and saltier. And those jellyfish that you're talking about, usually you find in Galveston Bay or the Gulf of Mexico, they now find suitable waters to live further into Arman Bayou and beyond.
Wow. Wow. So what are some of the other ecosystems that we might see if we go and visit Arman Bayou Nature Center?
Well, there are forests that surround the edges of the bayou. They're called coastal flatwoods forests. They're made up mostly of oaks and elms, and another way we can think of them is that they're a forest that lines the edge of the bayou. That's called a riparian forest. It means those trees follow closely to the edges of the bayou. But really one of the rarest ecosystems are coastal tallgrass prairies. In fact, they're one of the most critically imperiled habitats in North America. Today, experts believe less than 1% of coastal tallgrass prairies still survives.
So how does Arman Bayou then come about, you know, into existence to actually preserve this prairie? How did that happen?
Well, it was stimulated by the fact that Houston was going through a major growth boom, meaning that lots of people were moving here. Back when the Houston Ship Channel was being created, Johnson Space Center was being created, lots of people moved from around the country to find work. And as the Houston metropolitan area was growing, what that meant was a lot of those open spaces were being converted to business, to industry, to residential areas. And it began to become recognized by some of the early environmental visionaries that some large tracts of land should be preserved.
And I understand that one of the people who's really important in that is the person that Arman Bayou Nature Center is named after. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Yeah, Armand was the late curator of the Burke-Baker Planetarium. And
so he was an astronomer?
Well, he was many things, and that was one of them, an astronomer. In addition to that, he was a well-recognized local naturalist. So he had a real fondness for preserving open space and for conducting children's education. And I actually remember seeing him on early morning cartoon shows. Well, Armand was on his way to view a comet one evening when he had a flat tire, and the people who stopped to help him turned out to be thieves, and they robbed and murdered Armand on the side of the freeway.
Oh my goodness.
That kind of drove a real galvanizing effort to preserve this beautiful piece of land that's now around Arman Bayou, which was later named and memorialized in his honor.
Wow. Wow, I had no idea. I had never heard that story that he was killed. But I often wondered why the preserve came about after he had been, basically after he was gone, and that really explains it.
Mm-hmm.
Coastal prairies are one of those places where, because they are really not because of what we've done in terms of urban development, they're no longer really self-sustaining here anymore. They're an ecosystem that has to be maintained. And so what I'd like us to do now is watch some video, which was prepared actually by the city of Pasadena for Arman Bayou Nature Center, a really great partnership that they have with another organization, to show us how we actually keep the prairie looking restored and looking like the prairie of old.
Well, we're here today with our big annual restoration event called Prairie Pandemonium. And the name of it is really very appropriate because we're working in the prairie, and what we're trying to do is bring back those original historic prairie plants that have disappeared over time. Grazing pressure, invasive species, a whole host of different things have contributed to the disappearance of a lot of the plants that are very important to its ecology.
And just go back and forth across until you get down to there. Okay.
All right.
So whenever you find a hole, you let me know and I'll fill it in the map.
You got it.
Give it to them. So our volunteers will come out here and plant.
You got it. We've segregated ourselves into 4 separate sections, each with 750 plants and approximately 20 to 25 volunteers. The process is to take the plants, okay, that have already been incubated and nursed in these 1-gallon pots, and to spread them out evenly within each section. Then we put the prairie plant into the ground, pack the dirt around it, give it a big smile, okay, and move on to the next hole.
What you see around us here is the pandemonium part of it. We're trying to plant about 3,000 prairie plants in these 1-gallon containers before lunchtime. So it's taken almost a full year for us to grow this amount of plant material, and then in a very short time window it all gets planted in one day, prairie pandemonium.
Somewhere around 110 people are here right now, and so we're doing really, really great because it rained in the last couple of days. We didn't have to water with all this, and so we've been able to get, we were hoping to get 3,000 plants. We're already at 3,500 plants planted already. So it's great morning. So this is what we call an IBC. They hold food product like some kind of corn oil, but huge quantities of it, and actually after they're used, we get companies around here to donate them to us, and then we hold water in them. So in the times when we had droughts or during the summer when we're planting out here, we fill them up with water, and then we go out and put about a gallon of water in every hole before we put the plant in there. Because we had rain this week and actually had a whole bunch of it last night, the holes are very, very wet already, so we didn't have to have people carrying, 2 or 3 gallons. That's a lot of weight for people, and you have to go to every hole to carry it, so we were lucky. And that's part of the reason we're doing so well on planting today is we didn't have to carry all that water to every hole.
We're trying to preserve a part of Texas and Pasadena's ecological heritage. This is like a living museum. Pasadena once was almost completely grasslands, or these coastal tallgrass prairies that you see around us. But interestingly, when we brought cattle in and put them in permanent fenced pastures, those cows repeatedly like to eat the same type of grass over and over. And cowboys call those grasses ice cream plants because they taste real sweet to the cows, and that's why they like to eat them, is because they taste better. But because of that intensive ongoing grazing pressure, the grasses ultimately are grazed out of existence, and over time they disappear. So that really is what restoration ecology is bringing back the natives. We're trying to bring back those grasses that used to be the main players in the prairie ecology, in addition to a whole host of wildflowers that have also disappeared.
We're putting in Big Blue, Little Blue, which we kind of call miscellaneous. We're putting in forbs.
Gamma grass, yellow Indian grass, and switchgrass. And the other two things we're planting, we have things called forbs, and they are prairie plants, except they're the ones that flower.
And also a list of wildflowers that enhances the diversity of the prairie plant community. Arman Bayou Nature Center manages a native plant nursery. We have a greenhouse, we have a nursery area, so we also have a really dedicated team of volunteers that comes out every Friday. And that Friday volunteer team is called Prairie Friday. So those folks collect seeds, they dig up grasses from areas that are slated for development, neighborhood, strip center, area that's going to be disturbed. So they're collected from the local area. It takes, 6 months or so for those plants to reach the beautiful state that you see in these pots where they're ready to go back in the ground. The other reason that it's important and why we're doing it is that these types of areas provide important ecosystem services to the community.
The good thing about prairie plants, the roots are 6 feet long. So the good thing about that is when it rains, the water gets on the dirt and then it gets absorbed into the plants and it actually gets soaked into the ground. So it helps dampen flooding. Plants convert the bad stuff into good things. Cleans up the water, so when it does get into either the aquifers or gets run off into the ditches, into the bayous, it gets cleaned up, and so it's better for the bay, better for the seafood we eat, the shrimp and the fish and the crabs.
It's also a great place for recreation. This is one of the few publicly accessible prairies in Texas. We have a prairie hiking trail so you can bring the family out. So a whole long list of benefits as to why it's important and why we're doing what we're doing. The Bayou Forest and Prairies of Arman Bayou Nature Center make it one of the largest urban wilderness areas in the country. It's one of the most beautifully preserved natural areas that create an island ecosystem in the most densely populated county in Texas.
So urban wilderness. I think of wilderness and I think of things like backpacking and hiking and wild animals and really pristine nature. Can I see that? Can I visit that at Arman Bayou Nature Center? What's it like in terms of that?
Yeah, I would say that it's relatively pristine. It's you think of wilderness, you think of big, expansive, open space. Well, Arman Bayou Nature Center is about 4 square miles. So especially to be located in Harris County, as I mentioned, very densely populated. You have that sense of wilderness, even though you're in that metropolitan area. But you also have the opportunity to engage in all those various recreational activities that you mentioned: hiking, paddling, bird watching, fishing, long list of opportunities.
And what kind of animals might we see when we're out there? Say I come out on a paddle. And before I get there, if I want to learn to paddle, can I learn to paddle there, or do I have to know what I'm doing before I come to the Nature Center?
Well, you don't have to be an experienced paddler. And what we do is offer kind of an introductory, very entry level, how to paddle a canoe. It's our canoeing outings are not designed to leave you with being a really experienced high-level paddler, but you'll have the skills you'll need to get around. And what you'll see are those things that you probably would have found here many years ago. And it's often unexpected for people's first outing when we see animals like alligators, otters, ospreys, eagles at Arman Bayou.
Can people expect to come out there and go mountain biking, or a lot of people think of the kind of when you say recreation, they think, well, I want to go out there, I want to do sports.
Well, there is a sports complex located right next door to us, a very nice Harris County park called Bay Area Park, where many of those sporting activities are more appropriate. We do have a biking trail that goes around the outer perimeter of the Nature Center. It's not located on the hiking trails. We're really trying to promote a sense of wilderness at the Nature Center, a quiet, more quiet outing type of experience. So we have about 5 miles of hiking trails. We have the Texas Parks and Wildlife guided paddle trail. If you want to put your canoe in, you can look at their paddle map to kind of give you a clue of where you're going. Probably one of the best opportunities is to take a boat ride on the pontoon boat, the Bayou Ranger, which is a solar-powered electric boat that gets you right out into the heart of the refuge, one of the real best floating classroom opportunities that we have.
Are you the captain? You're the captain of that boat.
I'm one of two, yeah. There is another captain. We also have a great trained set of volunteer guides, naturalist guides that do a great job too.
Okay. Before we started today, you were telling me about the fact that the eagles are back. So I'm sure the audience would love to hear about those.
Well, bald eagles populations in Texas are on the increase, and we've had a nesting pair of bald eagles at the Nature Center for almost 10 years now. Very exciting, as you might imagine, because when the Nature Center opened, when I first started exploring Arman Bayou, long list of animals were on the newly formed endangered species list. That federal regulation, of course, originally designed to protect those species that we thought might disappear from the earth forever. And how exciting that now not only have they returned, but they've returned to the Houston area, to Pasadena, Texas. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier in that, all of those species of American alligator, peregrine falcon, brown eagle, brown pelican, and bald eagle, you are possible to see those when you're out on the water now.
Yeah, that is just so exciting. And I really... I think people don't realize how exciting it is, and sometimes a little scary to actually see those animals. I mean, you and I have spent time out on the bayou looking at, for example, alligators and following them, and some of them are quite impressive, both in size and appearance.
Yeah, well, that's one of the most common phrases that I hear at Arman Bayou when we have a group paddling, when we're out on the pontoon boat. It is, wow, I never knew this was here, or man, I've driven by this place 1,000 times and I never dreamed that anything like this was right here in the Houston area. And so it is really one of those natural treasures, not just of the Houston area, but really of the whole Texas coast, to have not just assembly of beautifully preserved land and wildlife, but the fact that it's located right in metropolitan Houston is what really makes it unique in the country.
Now, one of the programs that I've been lucky enough to participate in while we've been out there has been Preserve Watch. And I really love that program because it allows visitors to come and see parts of the Nature Center that you really can't see if you just come out on a daily visit. So if you come out for a hike or a paddle on your own, you're not going to get to visit some of those places that Preserve Watch allows you to visit. One of the really exciting evening visits I had not too long ago was one of your bat evenings. And especially since Halloween's sort of coming up here in the fall, I think that's a really great program. I think, is it going on again this fall?
Yeah, bat populations kind of leave the Houston area. There aren't as many bats here in the wintertime as there are in the warmth of the summer. But what we're really touching on is the larger environmental education program. That's the second part of the Nature Center's mission statement. We're here to preserve this beautiful piece of land, and we're here to provide local environmental education. Local, what's right in our own backyard. And it's designed both for the young and old. So we talk about children's programs or family programs such as the bat hikes. We have very young opportunities through eco-tots, all the way up to Preserve Watch is what the real adult program that you were talking about. We hope to get people out and help them appreciate what's right in our own backyard. And the Preserve Watch, as you're suggesting, gets people out into remote locations to view some of the most beautiful viewscapes and some of the rarest wildlife viewing opportunities that we have.
Yeah, I really, I think it's, I've been out there again on these kinds of programs, and it's so wonderful to be with my neighbors and see people, learning and um, experiencing this and literally getting their feet wet in our native ecosystems. So it's really exciting, and of course I love to go just because I love to be parts of it, and I've been part of what we've been doing out there for a while. One of the things that we've been doing now over the last couple of years is producing a series of videos with student filmmakers, and we took one of those trips to one of those really wonderful remote areas with Devin Hatfield, who was our last intern who worked on this project, and he took us out to see, or you took us out to see the rookery. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we're going to look out there, or we're going to look at that video, and we're going to take a look at the rookery at Arman Bayou Nature Center with you, because you are our guide on that day.
Today we're standing in one of the most beautifully preserved natural areas in the Bayou City. And all around the Bayou City and upper Texas Gulf Coast, as spring emerges, so do those birds and wildlife that are raising the next generation. Behind us is a nesting colony of herons and egrets, which is really one of the most dramatic viewing opportunities that we have around the Houston area. It takes these types of quiet spaces in an urban wilderness in order for these types of colonies to become established. These areas are important to places like nature centers because it also provides viewing opportunities for the public. One, where we can teach about the importance of preserving these special places, but also important because it gives an opportunity for the nature center to bring people out and reconnect them with nature. The Nature Center couldn't survive without a dedicated team of volunteers.
So, volunteers, are these people who are ticket takers? Are they picking up trash? If people want to volunteer there, what kind of opportunities might they have?
Well, volunteer opportunities are really pretty diverse out there, and while occasionally volunteers might take tickets or pick up trash, the truth is that they help primarily either with me in the stewardship department. They help in the education department, or children's programs and other adult programs. And they also help maintain the place. The facilities team helps to care for the buildings and the equipment and so forth. So very, very wide-ranging menu of volunteer opportunities.
Well, I know that one of my former graduate students came out and was needing volunteer hours, and I think you sent him out with a crew that was cutting down Chinese tallow.
Yeah, as an individual, you come, you become an enrolled volunteer, and then after that, you kind of have a choice of where you want to work. And a student with you who's interested in the environment obviously would want to plug in with that stewardship restoration team. And it really gives a student an opportunity to get field skills, to go out and maybe use some tools and learn what someone in that profession might be doing. So yeah, it's a great opportunity to plug in.
And you also have a volunteer fire team, right? I mean, people can actually go out and help you burn the prairie?
Yeah, grasslands all around the world are considered fire-dependent ecosystems. So it's hard to rationalize, but the truth is that grasslands stay healthy when they're exposed to those fires. And today, in an urban area, we have to do it in a very controlled fashion. Obviously, just throwing a match in a big field of grass is a very dangerous thing.
Not a good idea.
Houses and roads around. So what we do is train a team of volunteers to be able to go out into the prairie and to be able to conduct those types of activities safely.
That, I think, is an amazing opportunity for people to have. I mean, we usually think that if people are going to be wildfire trained, they're going to be out in California or something. The fact that right here on the Texas coast you can learn about the importance of fire and how to use it safely, I think, is a tremendous opportunity that you probably wouldn't have almost any place else.
Well, that's true. And, you know, one of our big goals is to promote public safety with our use of controlled burning. So I don't want to confuse wildfires, which we do not want to create, with a control burn, which is something that we kind of do this big plan and form and prescription to know where the fire is going to begin, where it's going to end, and it helps to manage those fuels to hopefully minimize any big catastrophic wildfires from ever occurring.
I think that's great for all of us who live around the Nature Center. Now, volunteering, so that's one way to participate. But volunteers, I don't think, pay the bills. And I know, for example, that there are, 7 of you guys who run the whole place?
Yeah, it's a very small staff. And, you know, we kind of started our discussion by saying we rely on volunteers. And that's a genuine thing. You know, with such a small staff, without that dedicated team of people that help with virtually every element of what we do out there, that's one important way. But we're also a nonprofit corporation, so that means that
like
we're
a
not
501c3?
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you know, many people confuse us with being a city park or a county park or a state park.
Well, especially because you're right next to Bay Area Park.
That's right. So the land is owned by Harris County, and we operate that nature center on county land, but we don't receive any automatic funding from any governmental entity. So that means for the last 40 years we have had to raise the funds needed to keep the doors open, and that's like a political campaign that never ends.
Exactly. And I mean, I know that, for example, you have that wonderful gala in the spring, which invites members to come. But I've also noticed that you have signs up in different parts of the facility that looks like you have some really great corporate partners too.
We do have great corporate partners, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone in the community who's supported us so much through the years. Because we're a nonprofit, that means that your donations are tax deductible. I also always like to say it's a great day to become a member. We have a large membership base, and if you're a member, thank you for that also.
I've been a member for a long time.
Another important way to help fund us. Participating in our programming, those educational classes, whether it's children's classes or Preserve Watch adult programs, those are fee-based classes, so that helps to go to our funding. So it's a big mosaic, a big quilt of different funding streams that are required to keep such a place in business.
Well, I think that you know, from my experience, that going out there is a very unique opportunity. It's, you know, there are so many wonderful programs that go on at different times of the year. It's just great to see the demonstrations that you sometimes have, to come out and see the animals that you have that are on display, so that people can actually see some of the native creatures that either live there now or should live there now. I think it's just a great opportunity all around to be able to visit the Nature Center.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Nature Center is one of the most beautifully preserved natural areas left in Texas. And at 4 square miles, it's one of the largest urban wilderness areas in the United States. We're open to the public. It's a great place to visit. I hope we'll come and see you walking the trails real soon.